Cost of heritage to make a tourist dollar. I'll cite two examples of the adaptive reuse of publicly owned built heritage assets, Paxton Square Cottages and the Burra Passport. Paxton Square Cottages. Built by the South Australian Mining Association between 1849 and 1851. It was the first kind of mining company housing in Australia built to encourage the miners that worked the Burra Monster Mine to leave their dugouts in the banks of the Burra Creek. It was sold to the Honourable John Lewis in 1913, who formed the Lewis Trust to administer the property to house the poor and needy of the Burra. The Lewis family vested the property into council ownership in 1980. Council adapted the property for budget family tourist accommodation between 1983 and 1989. The adaptation was funded by federal, state and local governments to the tune of $449,000 and a $450,000 contribution by the Paxton Square Cottages in the form of cash and borrowings. The three tiers of government matched the business enterprise contribution on a dollar-for-dollar basis. The Paxton Square Cottages is a council-owned business enterprise that must comply with the principles of competitive neutrality. It competes with other private tourism accommodation enterprises in Burra and surrounding regions. Since then, the maintenance and the upgrade of the Paxton Square Cottages has been funded by the operation of the Paxton Square Business Enterprise. Today, following 25 years of operation, the Paxton Square Cottages has only $11,000 in reserve and a hefty backlog of asset renewal to undertake. However, financial modelling, underpinned by a new marketing direction, has convinced the Paxton Square Cottages to set about undertaking a desperately needed staged upgrade over the next 4 years at a cost of $680,000, funded again through loans through council. Paxton Square Cottages expects to show a modest operating profit in 2021 and may then be in a position to implement the final stage of the upgrade at an anticipated cost of $530,000, again through borrowings through council. This is an example of a financially sustainable use of a heritage building, but only just. However, I suggest that had it not been for the upfront financial contribution by the three tiers of government, that adaptation on that scale would not have occurred, and the Paxton Square Cottages, or sections of that site, would now be in a bad and sad state of disrepair. Moving on to the Burra Passport. It's a self-guided 11-kilometre trail around Burra, giving access to a collection of historic buildings and sites through the use of the Passport Key and a guidebook purchased from the Burra and Goyder Visitor Information Centre. It has developed from a long weekend site entry fee, revenue raiser, to the existing joint venture between the National Trust and the Council, with half the sites owned and or managed by the National Trust and the other half of the sites owned by the Council. The Passport product was kick-started in the mid-1980s with a funding injection of around $470,000 from the federal government and $25,000 from the state government to restore and upgrade the buildings and sites in preparation for Burra's Jubilee 150. Since then, the promotion of the product, production of the Passport booklet and street directional signs has been funded jointly by the National Trust and the Council, and the maintenance and upgrade of the individual sites by the respective owners, generally from the proceeds of the sale of the Passport. The Burra Passport is not run as a business enterprise and does not have a business focus. It is not required to comply with the principles of competitive neutrality, as there are no competing enterprises in Burra and surrounding region. On a council perspective, the income generated by the sale of the Passport does not cover the cost to maintain the council-owned sites, and despite continuing council funding for asset maintenance, has resulted in a deterioration of some of the sites and a diminished visitor experience. Moreover, had there not been that significant financial contribution by the federal and state government, in the 1980s, the outlook for the Passport buildings and sites would have been even bleaker. The Passport product does not deliver a sustainable financial use of its collection of heritage buildings and sites. I suggest that in order to no longer travel along this road to ruin, suitable uses for each individual site needs to be found, as exampled by the current use of the Morfett's Engine House as a museum interpretive centre. That is beyond the capacity of the Council, and may I suggest the National Trust, to achieve in isolation of a partnership with private enterprise. The imperative is to at least retain our built heritage. Built heritage can value add our tourist experience. It can be the building that houses the accommodation or the cafe that sets that business apart from the competitors. The financially sustainable reuse of our built heritage will ensure it is retained, and it is private enterprise that will facilitate that preservation. So my takeaway message: the retention of Australia's public-owned built heritage assets must be the highest priority for all three tiers of government. Sustainable use for our publicly owned built heritage places must be found. Significant capital investment is required to kick-start sustainable adaptive reuse. Private enterprise is best positioned to adapt our publicly owned heritage buildings into financially sustainable uses. We must provide them with the incentive to do so. And on a final note, use it or lose it.